This is the tutorial for Chapter 5, Section 1, Solving Systems of Linear Equations by Graphing, day number 2. So our first problem is the same as what we ended up seeing yesterday, where we have a table that we're going to end up making to find this break-even point. C stands for cost, and R stands for revenue. And so what we've got here is an X value. X could maybe be, let's just say it's number of hours. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to find out when will the cost equal the revenue, and that's what break-even point is. It's when the cost equals the revenue. And so if we wanted to set up a table, we could find out when that would end up being. So we're going to make some X values, our number of hours, and then we're going to have the cost equation. So the cost equation is right here, and then we're going to have the revenue equation, and we're going to come up with some values. So let's start off with 1. And so I'm going to start with 1 this time, and 1 hour would be $150. Actually, let's start off with 0. We'll start off with 0. If I plug in 0 for X, multiply it by 15, that makes 0 plus 150. So I spend $150 without even working 1 hour, if that's what X is. My revenue would be 0 because I haven't worked at all. So I only make money once I start working, and I earn that $45 an hour. So the next line, next point here is 1, and this is for 1 hour's worth of work. And 1 hour, my cost is that $150 plus 15 makes $165, and I earn $45. So at 2 hours, though, I add another 15 to 165, and that gives me 180. And I end up having to add 45. 45 makes 90. And so I'm getting close. They're only 90 apart now, and I go ahead and try hour 3. Add $15, I get 195. And when I add 45 to 90, that gives me 135. And so now I'll go ahead and go to hour 4. I add 15 to this number, makes 210. And I go ahead and add 45 to 135, and that gives me 180. And from there, I'll go ahead and add on another one because they're starting to get closer. They're only 30 apart now. So when I go ahead and add another 15 hours or $15 to this 210, that makes 225. When I add 45 to 180, I also get 225. And so you can see how these two numbers are the same. The cost equals the revenue. And so when we see cost equaling revenue, we know we're at the break-even point. And so the way I'm going to signify the answer is that at 5, 225 is that break-even point. It's a point. I'm going to say 5 stands for hours. So that's going to be 5 hours. Both costs are both the cost and revenue equal $225. So we'll see one like that, and we see a problem like this where we have to graph the system of equations. And we're going to go ahead and start with the y-intercept right here. This is my y-intercept. I graph this by plotting that point 4 spaces down, and then using the slope. The slope of the line is the number that's changed by x, or that is changing x. It's -1, which I can write as -1 over 1, and that is, again, the slope. And so I'm going down 1 to the right, but I don't get on that line that way, so I can also go the other way as well. And so I just plot a bunch of points, and then I move on to the next line. And the next line has a y-intercept of +4, so we go up 4 spaces. And the slope this time is 3 to 5. So that tells me to go up 3 spaces and right 5. However, I'm having trouble doing that with this graph. And you can see, if I did that, about 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'd be somewhere in this range here. But that's not getting me to the line. So let's go the other way. I can go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then over 5. You see right there is where they're going to end up crossing. If I do that again, I'll pull another point over here. You can see where that line is. That line is down in this direction, and the black line is going down to the right. And this point is where they cross. And so what is that point? Well, this is our point of intersection that we're looking for there, and that point is at 5 spaces to the right and 1 space up. And so that's the solution that we're looking for. So let's move on to the next problem here, and this one is, it says a kicker on a football team scores 1 point for making an extra point, 3 points for making a field goal. The kicker makes a total of 8 extra points in field goals, so combined together, that's what it is, and scores 12 points. Write and solve a linear equation to find the number of x extra points and y field goals. And so we've got two equations. I've got this quantity equation first. The quantity equation is the number of field goals, or number of attempts I've had. So x is the number of extra points, y is the number of field goals, and I have a total of 8 of those altogether. See right here, 8 extra points and field goals. And so since they're both combined to make 8, I'll write that equation, and then I have a value equation. The value is the value of x, which is an extra point. It's 1x, plus the value of a field goal is 3y, and this all equals 12 points. So now I've got an equation to solve, and the best way to solve this one is using intercepts. I'm going to set x equal to 8 and y equal to 8. So basically I just covered up one of these terms, solve for the variable, and I've got 8. So let's go ahead and plot these on our graph. So the x-axis represents the number of extra points, and the y-axis, let's get rid of that a there and get this right, extra points, and the y-axis represents the number of field goals. So number of field goals. And so I'm going to figure out what my values are. I have to go up 8 spaces, so I'm going to go by ones here. So I'll just number each of these off, counting by 2s. So it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it looks like I have a point right here. And then I've got a point for the x-intercept over 8 spaces, so I'll go by ones again here. And I'll have a point right here at 8. And so you can see how, since they're both 8, all these points are possible values. So I'm going to just go ahead and plot these points to show that line. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the next one. Now this one, I go ahead and set the y equal to 0. I get x equals 12. If I set x equal to 0, I have an equation to solve. I've got to divide by 3, and that shows me y is 4. So I'm going to go up 4 spaces and plot a point, and then go over 12 spaces and plot a point. And then when I look at this one, I have to go down 4 spaces over 12. So if I was to do that, 4 over 12 is the slope of this line. So you see, if I solve for y, I'll find that slope. If I went 3y equals negative x plus 12. I got that negative x by subtracting that x from both sides. If I divide by 3, each of those terms by 3, I end up with y equals negative 1/3 x plus 4. So you can see how the slope is negative 1/3. So if I go down 1 over 3, I get on that line. Down 1 over 3, I get on that line, and that's where the lines are going to cross. So I can do that again and one more time right here. And so you can see at this point right here is the solution. So the solution, they want to know, write and solve a system of equations to find the number of extra points in field goals. Well, right here, if I go up from this point down to the extra points, it shows 6. And then I go over to the field goal side, and it shows 2. So the ordered pair, 6, 2, represents the solution. Well, 6 means something now. So 6 means that I had 6 extra points, and the 2 represents that I had 2 field goals. And that will make it so I have a solution for the system, and that's what I ended up coming up with. That is my solution. So let's take a look at one other problem similar to that. So here it says you have a total of 42 math and science problems for homework. 10 more math problems than science problems. How many problems do you have of each subject? And so use a system of linear equations to verify that. So I'm going to call x the number of science problems. Number of science problems. And I'm going to call y equals the number of math problems. And so the next thing I'm going to do is try to write an equation to match this. And so it says I have a total of 42 problems. That means the number of science problems plus the number of math problems equals 42. And then I've got another equation. It says you have 10 more math problems than you have science problems. So the math problems is y. So y equals the number of science problems plus 10, because I have 10 more math problems than science problems. So I have to add 10 to the number of science problems. That gives me the number of math problems. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this by doing some opposite operations. I'm going to start by setting, since I've got y equal to 0, I'm going to go ahead and solve it that way. So I'm going to go over to 10. So I need to figure out how I'm going to write this. I'm going to call this my x-axis. This is the number of science problems. And then I said y represented, so I'll draw the line up here, the number of math problems. And I need to figure out my numbering. So it looks like there's 30 spaces in here, but I need to be able to go up to 42. So I need to count by 2's rather than just going by 1. So this is 2, this would be 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and so this would be 20 there, and then 24, and this is 28, and 32, and continuing on I'll have 36, and then 40, and just about there, and that's 44. So that's as high as I need to go. And then I'll go ahead and count by 2's, do the same thing for the number of science questions. So this is 2, so this would be 4, 8, this would be 12, 16, and this one would be 20, 24, and then I have 28, 32, and right here would be 36, and then I've got 40, and then 44, and that should be enough. Okay, so now I can go ahead and plot these. So I'm going to go up 42 spaces, and I'll actually use the xy intercept method here. X equals 42, and you see how y equals 42. So I'll go to 42, and then over here at 42, and since they both are the same, that means that the points are going to be right along, kind of at a 45-degree angle going up in this direction here. Since they both equal the same value, that's what I'm going to have. So once I get these points plotted, I'll go ahead and move on to the next equation, which is this one. It says y equals x plus 10. So I'm going to start with the value at 10 and then follow the slope. And so 10 is going to end up being right in between 8 and 12. And so 1 over 1 is what the slope is. Well, that's the same thing as saying 2 over 2. So 2 over 2 makes 1. So I can do that. I can go up 2 over 2, and you can see how I'm going to have a line that looks like this. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this line on until I get these lines to cross. And right here is where they end up crossing. And so that's what I want to find out. I want to find out what this point is. So let's change the color there and just highlight that. So this is my value that I'm looking for. And then I'll just go down from that point, down, straight down along this line, till I hit this axis that tells me how many science problems I have, 16. And then I go straight across to the left until I hit this line, and it says that I have 20, between 24 and 28 is 26, so 26 math problems. So that's the ordered pair, 16, 26. You see I called x-axis the science question, so 16 science problems, and I had, let's see, 26 math problems. And so that's what we ended up seeing there. So those are the types of problems that you're going to end up seeing on tonight's homework. Good luck.